So good morning. Welcome to our Red Tara group and our contemplation. I know I probably sound like a broken record because for many weeks now we've been contemplating transforming an angry heart or transforming anger. But this is Buddhist technique. You go deeply into contemplation. Just like one day understanding it and say, oh, okay, I see that anger, is uh, not productive. I see that anger is harmful. What's the next item? It doesn't work like that. If you really want to transform your emotions, if you really want to transform your mind, you have to go deeply into the contemplation, deeply into the details. And the very fact that you can become bored or impatient with the contemplation is exactly what needs to be transformed. Because impatience is a subtle form of anger. Boredom is a subtle form of anger. You get irritated, you get you want something different, you you feel a bit mm, troubled, bothered. That's all a very subtle form of anger. So let's go through this chapter together, slowly, carefully, and really take advantage of this opportunity to really, really transform our anger and really try to change our minds. So here's another situation that a person brought up in the book. So injustice may be like a dream, but it's very real to the victim and to me as an activist who's trying to confront injustice. And my anger at the oppressors is also very real. Sir Rinpoche answers, most of us believe we have the right to get angry. We feel free to express our anger, most often with the ones that are closest to us. That's also such an interesting phenomenon, isn't it? The people we love the most, the people we're the closest to, the people we're the most comfortable with, are the ones that we tend to get the most angry with. But there's no such thing as the right to be angry. Our habitual reaction to conflict is to blame someone else. Nothing is right because the government is wrong, or our spouse is wrong, or our boss is wrong, or the system is wrong. In fact, the only thing wrong with life is always somebody else's fault. And we're going to tell everyone else how to make it right. But if we're not seeing clearly, the only thing to do is admit that what's wrong is our own perception. We need to improve our own vision. If we had no trouble with our perceptions, we would see the world as a reflection of the crystalline purity of our minds. But because of our mind's obscurations, everything seems flawed, and we take refuge in blaming others. Tell yourself that you need to be more loving, to see more purely. Take a look at your own faults. When others do something that seems outrageous, focus on their good qualities rather than on their mistakes. Put yourself in other people's shoes, especially when it comes to politics. Something's happened in our society because of social media that people only need to look at the news that they want to look at. So if you have a certain tendency, let's say politically, you'll go online, you'll only look at the sites that make you feel good about your political views. You'll never look at the sites that show other people's political views and ideas. But it's very important to do that because they're receiving a completely different view, perception of the world. And in order to understand them and their behavior, you need to put yourself in their shoes. And ideally, they put themselves in your shoes. But unfortunately, because of our human nature, we don't do that because it almost makes us feel sick to see what other people are saying that don't have a view that agrees with our view. Almost makes us feel nauseous. But if you really want to develop compassion and really want to develop tolerance, we need to do that. We need to submit ourselves to other people's ideas and other people's views and the information that they're receiving. Because unfortunately, we live in a world that's very, very divided right now. I know you're right, everything you say about anger, but sometimes when my wife and I fight, especially when she insults me, I completely lose it. The habit of lashing out lies deep within us all. We tend to have a short fuse, and it is almost impossible to stop ourselves once we explode. If we try to stop the explosion, it will only implode. So we have to train ourselves to prevent the explosion from taking place at all. One approach is to realize that allowing ourselves to be insulted by someone else's words is just like being fooled by an echo. If someone tells us that the piece of gold that we own is nothing but an ugly rock, that doesn't make the gold any less valuable. If 100 people tell us that the rock on our table is a beautiful piece of gold, that doesn't make it any more valuable. People may insult us, but that doesn't mean their words are truer than words of praise. Whether we are praised or blamed makes no difference. It doesn't change us one way or the other. Instead, we should tell ourselves that words are no more than wind passing over vocal cords. We can also remind ourselves that an irate person's words and actions are impermanent. Someone who is our friend today may have been our enemy in another lifetime. Our current enemy was perhaps formerly a friend or a kind parent. In any case, his words are different now than they were yesterday, and they'll be different again tomorrow. Another approach is to contemplate the fact that there is no benefit in giving power to someone's harsh words. If we do, negative thoughts can arise in our mind, and we cling to them instead of letting them go. We give them voice, only making matters worse. We think that by responding in the same way, we will discourage someone from harming us again. But responding to anger with anger only leads to escalation. If a fire is raging on the kitchen floor, we obviously can't put more firewood on top of it. Once we realize that anger creates negative karma, which causes suffering, we will no longer want to add wood to the fire. And it's a very, very simple thing in life that's very obvious. Anybody can see it if they take the time to look. And it's called the law of attraction. The law of attraction means you're going to get back what you put out there. So I'll give you an example. Very close to home, actually. That's the example of my parents. My mom, who is in what's called a memory care unit because she has Alzheimer's, is just the sweetest, most loving thing in the world. She's easy to deal with. She hugs everybody. She tells everybody that she loves them. And all of the nurses and all of the residents at her memory care unit absolutely adore her. So all day long, she's dealing with people that come up and say, "Susie, how are you? You're adorable. I love you. Give me a hug." And my mom responds the same way. And all day long, she's getting this loving, positive feedback. And believe me, the nurses aren't that way with everybody there. But it's so obvious right there. She's putting it out, and it's coming back to her. On the other hand, there's some very crabby people there that lash out, that are angry, sometimes can hit and be violent. A lot of times they end up having to be restrained in their rooms. People don't want to deal with them. Immediately when the staff has to go deal with them, they come in with a scowl on their face and very impatient and sharp. And so that person is getting back all day long this negativity that they are also putting out, and it becomes a negative cycle. It's that simple. What we put out is what we're going to get back. Like the ripples in water, what goes out comes back. So how do we want people to treat us? It may seem like the way that we're acting now has nothing to do with the way some person in traffic interacts with us. But it's exactly the same thing. It's just more time has lapsed between the seed that was planted and what we put out there. So thinking about future lifetimes and also later on in this lifetime, what do we want to get back? How would we like to be treated? What do we want to put out there?